Hello, I'm Filippo. As they present me, I'm Head of Research and Partner Management for Startup Bootcamp. Would you mind to introduce quickly yourself, what you do?
Yeah, hi, my name is Peter Goodman. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Home Life, and we're building an insurance customer-centric app where you can essentially manage and buy all of your insurances in one place.
Jonathan Rumer, co-founder of ULife. U is a well-being company that's reinventing insurance, starting with life insurance. We believe that there is no company in the world that should be able to look after you better than your insurer, because ultimately they have a vested interest in you. So that's what we're doing in short.
I'm Dan Benetton. I'm Benefits Director of HiBob. HiBob is an integrated HR management environment and benefits platform, and what we bring to the market is the integration of all of the very rich data that we get from HR to serve employees by offering relevant solutions to them, and serving insurers by giving access to data they would not otherwise have.
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Tim Roughton. I'm a partner at Pinson Masons. I'm a technology lawyer, have been for the last 15 years or so, and specialising in the insurance and financial services sector. So you could say I've been an InsurTech lawyer for long before the term was phrased.
Great. So conscious of the time, we just got 20 minutes. I would like to ask you actually, why InsurTech and how did you start your journey in this specific field?
So most of the things that I tend to start in terms of companies are really born out of sort of self-frustration. I found the insurance world after I ended up selling a company into Salesforce, and we spent a lot of time on sort of customer centricity, and I just found that when I was buying my insurances and trying to manage them, renew them especially, I just found it completely non-centric to my needs. And so yeah, you start on a journey about 18 months ago to figure out the world of insurance, of which I knew nothing about at the time. And then just learn, and I think sometimes there's a benefit of not coming from an industry to be able to see a little bit clearer on what you would like from an industry. And then I refounded a business with my original co-founder, another company. We started building, and it really has just been exciting to see that, you know, we're in a fortunate space because of the fact that, you know, as a startup you get a completely blank slate, whereas unfortunately a lot of the incumbents in the industry are kind of, I guess, you know, hindered a little bit by the scale that they're actually at. So we can easily sort of sit here and sort of dismiss and slate the big players, but in truth, they kind of got there, and you know, we kind of aspire to play alongside, because you have to realise that when you get to a certain size, there's a lot of moving cogs that you can't actually move. So, you know, for us, we're very lucky we can sit above all that, above all the noise, and, you know, generate what we feel is a customer-centric business, and sort of move on from there.
Right, so from a personal perspective, InsurTech is something that's quite close to my heart. It brought together various sides of my past and my history, which worked really well. So by profession, I'm an actuary. I've spent a long time getting that title, and then worked in the industry for a few years. But my passion has always been technology and tech. And until recently, they were completely mutually exclusive. So being able to bring two sides of myself together and put them together within a product and within a company has something that really works well. But InsurTech itself is just such a great area to be in. And this is probably the most accurate thing you can ever say, but insurance is a beautiful product. It really, really is. And when you get down to it, it's there to help people. But over time, it just has been corrupted just through complexity and through so many people taking margins, going from how risk is priced to what you actually see at the end of the day, which ultimately at the moment is just kind of a dumb pipe where you never have a conversation with your insurer. So it's just a great opportunity to go back to what insurance is, a tool to help people, and provide that in a new way.
It's not my first entry into InsurTech. I've been involved with a few, including one you might know as Compare the Market. I was part of the team that came to set that up some years ago. But what I've seen is an opportunity for a very long time. My background, my passion has been user experience for a very long time, and so looking at the opportunities to make computing environments work better for people, deliver better solutions, and the idea of marrying HR and benefits, HR and insurance was just too good an opportunity to miss. We need to bring relevance, we need to bring timely offers to employees and organizations, and that's what we want to do.
So as I said, I've been a lawyer in this industry for a while, and 10, 15 years ago that meant procuring IT and technology infrastructure platforms for my traditional client base, which are the insurers. And it's in the last 3, 4, 5 years where the whole digitization mobilization, the innovative startups has started to affect that business model and disrupt that business model. And so I see it very much from the side of the traditional insurers reacting to that threat and those opportunities, and how they deal with that. Do they compete? Do they create their own products? Do they collaborate and partner? Do they invest in them? Do they acquire them? And so that's how I'm seeing it from the perspective of the insurers reacting to the InsurTech phenomenon.
Great. So working at Startup Bootcamp, we've seen a lot of partners and startups working together. So it's really a collaborative environment. So how is going for you, like collaboration with insurers or with regulators, investors, and the other stakeholders?
I mean, I think there's been, I mean, certainly from our perspective, we've been sort of talking to as many insurers as we can, because I think, you can never dismiss knowledge that is sort of inbred in them companies, and good and bad. I mean, you talk about customer experiences within insurance companies, that currently exist. So from my perspective, we've been spending quite a lot of time with them. Obviously, we need rates and we need products as well. So, creating products is not an easy, straightforward process, because I think the way that, sort of what you're saying before, is that there's a lot of things in the way, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of mouths to feed sometimes in a chain, that you want to kind of get to the source, but can sometimes not find that source. So I've found the industry very, very collaborative. No one, and also I think when you've got the confidence in delivery, that you can execute a product, you're happier to share. I think the first company that a person starts, they're kind of very secretive around NDAs. I mean, there's just no point, right? If you can deliver, you can deliver. If you can't, you can't. Like, it's kind of a case of, so when you take that attitude into big companies, you can kind of sit there and have an open and broad, honest discussion with them. And I think they appreciate that sometimes. We're here to do what we're here to do, and I think they welcome that. And from an investment perspective, there's a lot of interest from the insurers in what we do, because I think we're seeing, if it works really well, and obviously you become a distribution channel as much as anything for these companies. So I've certainly really enjoyed working with them, to be honest.
For us, we're probably more in the competition space with insurers. What we actually do is still kind of up for debate amongst the team. We're only going to go live towards the end of the year, so I can't unfortunately share too much yet. But we certainly will be looking more to compete with insurers. We're working very closely with reinsurers, who really sit behind the industry as the power players. And they have shown an incredible willingness to innovate and to do things differently. Ultimately, though, for us, what we want to do is be the front of the business. We want to work with ultimately our customers. They're not policyholders; these are people who we look after. And how the risk in the background actually gets priced and who delivers it is less important. What's more important is that you're delivering the right product and having a conversation with people. And that's certainly the area that we want to be in. So whether we compete or we collaborate is yet to be decided.
So we are certainly collaborating with insurers. We're finding that providers are very, very interested in what we're doing. One of the reasons for that is our focus is in the broad SME market, going up to companies of, say, 2,000 employees. And this is a market that's been very poorly served over time by the general insurance market. It's been difficult for insurers to reach out to smaller organizations. There's not the return to support the consultancy model that they've typically used. And the broker market has been hit hard by regulation over the last several years. And so they're eager to find a channel with which they can collaborate. The challenges that we have are probably challenges faced by everybody else in here who's interested in InsurTech, is that the insurers themselves tend to be running legacy platforms. They don't have APIs. They are not particularly well set up to collaborate with us at a technical level. They're eager to do so on a business basis, and we're trying hard to push them forward. They're taking an interest now. Hopefully we'll see progress in the next year or two.
Hi, and from an insurer's perspective, I suppose, the looking to collaborate with a startup, I think there are three primary issues. One is identification in the first place, meeting the right people, identifying the right startup that's going to meet that business need. There's a whole host of InsurTech and FinTech businesses out there. There's only so many hackathons and meetups and conferences you can go to, and there's only a certain number of hours in the day to meet these people. And it's identifying the wheat from the chaff, and identifying the ones that are really going to meet that business need or that gap that you've got in your business. I think that's the first challenge. The second challenge is around capability. You just mentioned around, technically, does the product work? Does it interface with legacy systems, legacy infrastructure? Is it a scalable system? Is it a scalable product? And does the startup have the resource necessary to sort of meet the needs of the larger organization to implement that product and bring it to market? And I think the third issue is around legal and risk. to partner and collaborate, you need to put a contract together. That's my job. That can be, traditionally, insurer and procuring IT will have a fairly robust and detailed contract. They'll put a lot of risk on the IT supplier, and that IT supplier can normally meet that liability. When you're dealing with a startup, that's a whole completely different picture, and that requires a different mindset from the insurer, different risk appetite, and some are better at others at that adaptation, but there's still some way to go. Insurers are inherently conservative organisations, and that is that's a challenge for both sides of the equation to try and solve.
So, which you think are the most innovative tech, or that you're using, or that you are meeting in UK teams? Which you think are the most innovative and most disruptive technologies in this sector, or which sector of the value chain do you think is likely to be most disrupted?
I mean, to be fair, I get asked continually why we're not doing a B2B product, because I built a B2B product before. I ask myself the same question sometimes, but the truth is, I think from one of the things that we're finding is that from a B2B perspective, you'd have to replace so much of it to actually make it work, and that's, you look at the insurance companies, how much IT they write off every year, just to try and connect those dots internally for us to build a third-party system that can come in. So I think so from a disruption perspective, which is a word that kind of sits a bit odd with me, I think it's just you just do something better than others. But for me, it's just kind of one of the things when you look at when you want to disrupt just one part of the flow, it's really, really difficult, because it has to connect to the rest of the flow, to the point that the guys are making here. And I think for us, we went B2C in the end, which I still think is a funny thing, because I think insurance is a C2B market, because I think people buy it, you don't really sell it. And I think the way that you look at that is that it's easier to build above everything and worry about that stuff sort of as it comes. But disrupting is therefore a tougher thing to do, I think, in this industry, because you can't break the entire chain, which is what people try and improve, the system's slow. So, from a company perspective, I'm seeing companies that are breaking little bits of it, but if they're breaking, I don't know how you create your rates or how you create your documents, you've then got to go back and do the rest of it on a legacy old system. It just doesn't, it's really difficult to see that value play. That's why I think B2C is a much better play in this space than B2B.
Yeah, agreed. There's lots of players trying to do small aspects, very few who are looking to actually try and rewrite the whole value chain, and we might be one of those who's looking to do something like that, because you just can't do it and with bolting on. The value chain is quite long. I mean, there's two areas that we're particularly excited about. The one is really the front end. It's moving away from just providing a product that pays when you die to being able to have a conversation with people. So actually being able to provide something that's more valuable on a tangible basis. But also, on the background, and something which we are very passionate about, is providing some more form of personalization through different types of premiums, through different types of understanding. But ultimately, what that means is that we want to have a better understanding of the people who we're working with. So it's not just you fill out 10 fields and then therefore here's your price forever. People change over time. Your risk changes, you change. So why shouldn't your protection change? So for me, the most innovation will come in being able to provide people with personalized protection, which doesn't mean you have life insurance and critical insurance and income protection. It means that ultimately you have protection for all the things that could go wrong. So I think for me, the biggest change in the value chain will be moving away from predefined products to just protecting people.
And I suppose I can harmonize with that to some extent. I'm not sure that we see or have looked previously at the integrated product mix, though it's a wonderful idea and it's one I'd be happy to support. But the ability, as I mentioned, to use richer data to provide that feedback into the insurance loop, to be able to intervene in ways that are not pure insurance interventions. So our provider partners are very, very keen to be able, for example, to introduce employee assistance program interventions at appropriate times. As the HR management platform, we know patterns of sickness absence. We can see people's behavior. We know when people aren't taking holidays. We know when people are working extended hours for protracted periods of time. It provides something the insurance industry has not had, which is the ability to respond to life events dynamically. And I think that may well be a disruptor.
And I agree with most of what's been said. I think the thing that's really going to sort of take off will be anything that provides that slick customer experience, become the Uberization. I know it's an easy word to say, but something that makes things slicker, easier, and more attractive to consumers, I think is going to be the thing that will be most successful.
So a customer through InsurTech and new technology is actually becoming the king of of everything, basically. You'll be able to have better premium, better service, and everything else through new innovation, new tech. So would you say that, so if you consider that 2-3 years ago, no one knew about InsurTech, say that now we're living in this hype of InsurTech, there's a lot being said about InsurTech, a lot of press, a lot of investments. So how we can actually distinguish between the real tech, the real startups that are actually improving and innovating the services, between those that are just jumping in this sector because it's a cool sector to be at the moment?
I mean, I think you'll always find when there's a buzzword around and the hashtag comes out and off you go and there's another industry. And but I mean, it's only an industry if it generates revenue and it actually delivers products. I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of people that come and go. And the proof's in the pudding at the end of the day for me. I think that insurance has been one of the last places to go, I think, because of the complexities around the back-end legacy systems and also the complexity around insurance as a whole. I mean, it's not an easy industry to sort of ingratiate yourself with, and I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of sort of key players throughout the time, and they're welcoming this. You sit around a ball table and people they're saying the same thing. We know it's coming. We know it's coming. We know it's coming. So if we know it's coming, then someone's got to go and do it. And I think that there's an acknowledgement as well in the big corps that it can't always be done by them, and they're not frightened to see others sort of succeed as well. And I think that's where they're inventing their own investment funds because they'll pick the ones that will benefit them. And I think there's an interesting play there for sort of all of them involved.
Yeah, I completely agree. InsurTech, I think, is absolutely here to stay. We're a couple of years behind the banking, and in a year or two we'll have a panel like the banking one that was here earlier. There's going to be a lot of winners, a lot of losers. There's going to be a lot of change, but the bottom line is it's here. One of the big reasons, I think, is that the incumbent insurers have jumped on board a lot earlier than the big banks did. So you just have to look at any of the big guys who've all got their own investment funds now, and they're all trying, which I think means that it is here to stay. And ultimately, I left a very comfortable job to do this, so it has to work. Otherwise, my wife is going to be really cross with me. So please buy our product eventually.
Yeah, I think that one of the key differentiators, if you're trying to do that, and it's very hard to do it from outside an organization, you really have to get to know the organization. Those who are real InsurTech players are those who bring together a reasonably deep knowledge of both sides of this. You need the technology capability, but you need a deep understanding of the commercials behind insurance in order to make this work, in order to deliver something that will move the product forward, move the market forward.
Yeah, and I agree with all those points, but not much more to add other than just saying natural selection will determine who the winners and the losers are, and ultimately the product and service behind that will be the determining factor.
Great. Our last question is more about the ecosystem in London. So in London, there's regulators, the insurers. What do you think is the biggest pain point to be a startup, so to be an insurer in this ecosystem actually? What do you think that is needed from the whole ecosystem? More, meetups, more investors, more insurers being able to communicate with startups and to extend their network, or?
I mean, I think we've probably covered a lot of it in terms of the if you want to engage with the sort of the people that control the money at the end of the day in terms of the underwriting and beyond. There's a meeting of minds is one thing, but a meeting of technology is another. And I think that speed and accuracy of data is going to be a big key for us and for us all. I think in that you want to be able to do things quicker. If you're doing it on mobile, you're going to have to make sure that the connectivity is great, and calling a third-party system to call a third-party system to call it on-site. It's just like you've got to make sure that we can deliver it. But again, these things can't change quickly, and so you build around it, you build on top of it, and you replace it over time. But yeah, I think it's in a pretty good spot. I mean, people have to just get to market and build really good technology and good products and good experience. And like you say, I think it will just come to the top. And the challenge is no different to any other industry, really. It's just about the delivery of what you want to do at the end.
Agree. I actually think the InsurTech scene is taking off really well now. There's lots of meetups, a lot of investment going into the area. I think the thing that's holding us back most is something that's just holding the whole industry back and everyone back, is that there's a severe lack of full-stack developers. If anyone here is interested, we're hiring. But honestly, that is something that we find is a big challenge, is getting the right talent on board. And that goes beyond InsurTech. So that for us is a big challenge, is hiring enough people to build as quickly as we want.
Well, absolutely, technical capability is an issue, but I think that it's technical capability on both sides of this. It's not only in the startups, it's the capability within the insurers. I've already alluded to that. It's a familiar challenge for all of us. I think there are plenty of insurers, and there's vast interest. They're keen to get involved. It's a time-consuming and capital-consuming process to move from where they have been to where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think a key point around the whole legacy infrastructure, legacy issues, is that one key enabler to take this to the next step is the adoption of cloud. Traditionally, adoption of cloud technology in the financial services sector, insurance sector, has been hindered by regulatory issues and other issues. But we're seeing a sea change around that right now. As we've heard today, lots about the great regulatory environment we've got here in the UK. The support from the FCA around cloud adoption. We're now seeing startup and challenger banks coming on, being authorised 100% in the cloud. We're seeing major insurers and banks signing major infrastructure deals in the cloud, and that will inevitably change the landscape going forward and make things more agile and more adaptive for change.
Great. Any question from the room?
Could I ask what their speakers would expect in terms of support from the government, either in removing roadblocks or providing tangible support to small InsurTech startups?
It would be great if we could reclaim some of the VAT we have to pay. There's this, and also from an SEIS and EIS perspective, we won't qualify likely, because we're in a bit of a grey area of where we're at. So I suppose changing some of those laws to help us in the fintech sector would be great. Having to pay an extra 20% because we're a financial services company on VAT and all these other things does put a bit of a capital strain, but it's just a small thing. Otherwise, I think that there's phenomenal government support within the general tech sector at the moment.
Yeah, we found access quite nicely to the regulators and stuff a lot easier than I actually thought I was going to be honest. I thought it was going to be a bit of a struggle, but everyone was quite welcoming, and when we sort of went through our regulatory stuff, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. You hear the word regulator and you're kind of like, but it was actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So.
I think we've had quite good support from government, no issues there. I think the only thing that I would call out, and it might have been mentioned earlier, was regulatory stability. I think the call for one of the products we saw among the innovation team was keeping everybody up to date on what's happening in the regulatory environment on a global basis. Change means that we need to change, and so stability would help us to develop things further.
Yeah, and I suppose to add, we can't have a panel session like this without mentioning Brexit. So to the extent you can organise a great Brexit deal that includes passporting and free movement of workers, that'd be fantastic.
Hi there. Is InsurTech nowadays more about disrupting the intermediaries between, say, small businesses that seek insurance and insurance provider, or insurer themselves? So do you see FinTech being more disruptive? So to the intermediaries or to the insurers? I think this is also back to the question of the value chain and who you attack. Who's getting disrupted first?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely both. The intermediaries are probably first because in some ways it's easier because of, as we've discussed, legacy issues and the actual complexity within insurers themselves. And ultimately, do you need a broker in the middle of what hopefully eventually is a simple product? Probably not. So intermediaries definitely are going to be, I don't like the word disrupted, I just always found it negative. There will be a better experience coming along for people, and that's why with the likes of HiBob are really great, because it helps just at a much lower cost. It takes out a lot of the margin for everyone, but ultimately then there will be a lot of disruption within the insurers themselves. I think the intermediaries first and then the actual risk second.
Yeah, and I think that comes from distribution. I think if once you distribute a product, you can start to, the other parts can be sort of managed as well. But I think initially it is about a distribution play, and the distribution channels are for intermediaries, and if you can cut that corner, then you can save the consumer money, and you can ultimately use that to distribute your own products much more effectively than through others and others and others.
Yeah, there is another side to it as well. It's not where we are playing at the moment, but certainly for the insurers directly, the use of some of the emerging technologies, mobile eye, facilities like that, that allow them to manage risk directly is another area of InsurTech, which I don't think is really represented directly by anyone on the panel today.
Hi, I'll just like your opinion on the whole Brexit issue. So like, you know, on a day, and then Lloyd's of London kind of like opened like a small little branch in Brussels, especially with like specialty insurance. Do you think there's any like whole impact on the general like insurance sector for London?
Yeah. To be honest, when at the stage that we're at, everything that we focused on are mostly micro issues. So I'm far more concerned about hiring my next developer at the moment than I am worried about what Theresa May will and won't do. I mean, that's not to say that it won't affect us, because clearly it will, and talent is such a big issue. But to be honest, that's just not something we focus on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would agree that talent is a far, far bigger issue with regard to Brexit than is anything in the regulatory environment or the structure of the industry. I think that the British insurance industry is very strong, and it will continue to be, and it will continue to be a major global player, and will ride through Brexit, whatever solution we come up with. But I think our ability to source talent into the UK is going to be challenged somewhat. It's certainly going to be challenged over the next 2 years while uncertainty continues.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mentioned the comment around Brexit there. I think of the two issues, passporting and workers, I think the second one is probably more important. We're talking about the talent problem already today. If you have to have a visa, 200-page visa document to get your talent into the country, then that is going to have an effect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.